Welcome or welcome back to our Wakili.sha Podcast, brought to you by Wakili.sha Initiative. We promote justice and education for children in conflict with the law. This is the last part of our 3-part series on DAC, an event we had on June celebrating the Day of the African Child. And before we dwell into the panel, I'd like to ask my co-hosts to introduce themselves in case we have anyone new listening in.
Me.
Okay, right?
Okay, I'll go. My name is Bran Bright. I'm the co-director of communications at Wakili.sha and a co-host of this podcast.
My name is Elizabeth Jambi. I am the founder and CEO of Wakili.sha, and I'm happy to be here. Karibu.
Oh yeah, and I'm Zipporah Njuguna. I'm the productions manager at Wakili.sha. I'd like to ask you a question before we give a chance to our panelists. What does a safe digital environment looks like to you?
Who's supposed to start?
Anyone can start.
Right.
Okay. A safe digital environment, I'm not even sure that exists, but like, if I can be delusional, it's,
Positive Delulu.
Yeah, positive delulu. If I can be delusional for a bit, maybe, somewhere I can fully be myself, express myself, and just be able to post anything I want to post without, fear of all the bad things that could happen, all the things that could go wrong.
Okay.
In an environment where everyone can be themselves and isn't bullied all the time, and like you can share something and go on with your business and not come back to your phone to your notifications blowing up because someone understood something that you said or misinterpreted something. Just that for me, like use the digital space with no worry of anything.
Okay.
A digital environment that's accessible and safe for me. First, accessibility is not just like access to the internet or the devices, but like access as an individual, as who I am. Like, I don't have to reduce myself to fit a certain acceptable narrative or try to fit in or whatever. Like, it's accessible to me as Liz in every bit of my personality, who I am, and I feel safe in that personality, in my age, in my gender, like I can be 1,000% myself. And for children, I'm not a parent yet, but even when we have these discussions, I'm constantly thinking, oh my god, if it's this bad now, what happens when we have kids? How are we going to be protecting them on the digital spaces? So a safe digital space for me is where, as Bright says, I'm not constantly anxious or worried about what happens, what comes next, who's going to see my post, what can they do, or how can they interpret it. So that's what a safe and accessible digital environment looks like to me.
Oh, nice. Just to summarize both of your points, I think the internet holds so much power, because just thinking of it, a comment or someone bullying you on the internet. There was this series by Selena Gomez, 13 Reasons. 13
the
hours.
series 13 Reasons Why.
Yes, something like that. 13 hours. Sorry. And the main character committed suicide because of someone bullying them. And it gets me thinking, we cannot always be that safeguard even our younger siblings. You're just there managing, trying to keep in tabs of what they are doing on their phones, because unlike our age, kitambo, for us, I think also groomers and pedophiles, they are evolving. There are always many ways of contacting your kids through games. And it's such a scary world we are living in. But I also want to acknowledge the fact that there are things like app blockers, passwords on your TV when you don't want your kid to access certain content. And yeah, I guess I could acknowledge like the good and there is the bad of it. I would just have to just keep it a balance and
Balance.
just always be there to, and as long as you are like restricting something to your kid, it's also important to let them know why. Like the why is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In such a manner that they also understand.
Yes.
Not just
Yes.
because so and
Yeah.
so said I shouldn't, but I
Yes.
understand why I shouldn't.
Exactly. And so the theme of this panel was creating an accessible and a safe digital environment for children in conflict and in contact with the law. The panel was led by Terry Muikamba, and we also have to acknowledge Eunice Kilundo, who was in absentia but pre-recorded it. Yeah. Enjoy.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Is everyone having a good time? All right, so welcome to the third panel. My name is Terry Muikamba. I am a radio presenter at Hot 96. I work for Citizen. I am also a lawyer, and I'd like to say I'm a child's champion simply because I feel the way children and children's stories are told really is wanting. So I like to say I am a dignified storyteller, and I'm really happy to be here. So we're gonna just have the panel introduce themselves really quickly, and then we'll pick it from there.
Thank you, Terry. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon once more. My name is Athena Morgan. I'm the Regional Project Manager for International Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We do work across Africa with African children and key stakeholders on issues of online child safety, prevention on online child sexual exploitation and abuse, and also looking into online solicitation and missing and trafficking of children. I'm happy to be here.
I'm Caren Wanjau. Yes, so I'm a litigator as well as I do commercial aspects of the law as well in intellectual property, tech law, and privacy law. Yes, and I'm so happy to be here and so happy to see all of you. Thank you.
So good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
As earlier mentioned, my name is Elvis Cosmos. I am a graduate assistant at the Strathmore Law School. Basically, what that means is I get the opportunity to teach the law to law students, and I also have the opportunity of working with Strathmore Law Clinic. So we basically do a lot of creating a lot of access to justice programs that create legal awareness for people within the informal settlements, and especially the indigent who can't afford and don't know their rights. We basically try to create awareness for them.
Great. Now, before you hand over the mic, now that you teach law, I'd like to know from you, if you were to create one new right for every child, what right would that be?
That's a tough one, and I'm on the spot. So now my students will think, wow, okay, Ajui?
One right, yeah.
One right. Mm-hmm. And it's completely new, never existed.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the right to be heard, if I was to explain. We live in a very busy world where everybody is always on the move, doing a lot of things. My own young sisters are always engaged in so many things. It's coaching here, it's tutoring there, it's practice this side. And I think sometimes they just need an ear that can actually listen to them. So the right to be heard for me would be very important.
Okay. Would love to hear from you, Caren. What right would that be?
Right to maybe representation in the government sector. I don't know how I would. It would be wonderful to see a child present a motion in Parliament about how they're concerned and how they feel about the finance bill. You know, how it will impact their parents when they want something and they're told, I don't have money. I think right to speak in those formal settings, I would think that would be amazing.
I like that. So I'm getting right to be heard, right? How about you?
I think I'd just build up on what they've said and maybe phrase it as right to parental attention. One of the most common complaints, let me call it that, we hear when we are talking to parents is that, but we don't have time. We work 8 to 5 jobs. We are caught up in traffic. By the time we get home, our kids are asleep. So maybe if there was a law that stated that parents between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. must be with their children just to do anything that is not academic, not necessarily anything else, but just that 1 hour to give their children attention, interact and engage with them, and that would be ideal.
I like that.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is that, and I've heard it the whole day, it's about also intentional parenting.
Yeah.
So I guess it's something that we could take home. Now let's get to what the panel is about today, and we'll start with you, Athena. Now, based on the work that you do at International Center for Missing and Exploited Children, what do you think are the gaps in Kenya's policies when it comes to creating an accessible and safe digital environment for children?
First of all, I'd like to start by saying that Kenya is doing quite a lot comparatively to other African countries. We are setting the pace, but that should not mean that we should slow down. Last year and earlier this year, ICMEC is the short for International Center.
Okay.
So we did an assessment, which was like a build-up from the NPA by the Directorate of Children's Services.
Right.
And one of the key gaps we saw, especially in relation to policy, was in terms of terminologies. So one of the challenges comes in when you call a crime, when you point out a crime for what it is, it makes it easier to prosecute.
Right.
So we have an international guideline known as the Luxembourg Guidelines. They state what particular abuse is called and how it affects a child. So let me give an example. We have the term pornography. In all laws, we talk about child pornography, adult pornography. But legally speaking, pornography connotates that the person who is involved in that act has the mental capacity to give consent. Then the question becomes, does a child have the right to give consent? A child is not capable of giving consent. Anyone under the age of 18 cannot give consent. So when you see a photo or a video of a child in a sexual activity, you can't call it child pornography because it's like saying the child agreed to it.
Right.
So what we call that, or what the guidelines, it's an international guideline, not our guideline, what the guideline terms that, it's child sexual abuse material. So when you go to court, don't say they are guilty of child pornography. You're contradicting yourself.
Yes.
But when you say it's child sexual abuse material, when you hear that, it stirs something in you that calls for action.
Yes.
So our laws are in the process of being modified and edited to factor this in, but that was one of the key gaps that we saw as we were looking at it. In terms of structure also, I'd like to commend the previous panel. A lot was said in relation to what is being done, but it is centrally located in terms of implementation.
Yes.
We have child-friendly court systems, which is a good thing, but it's only in Nairobi, and I think one more in Shanzu. And Kenya is very big. So sometimes we may have the policies that speak to it, but the implementation bit of it has not been spread out to reach the children, not just in the capital city, but all the other areas within the country. And that goes down also to the empowerment of the caregivers. That's like the law enforcement who do investigation, or the prosecutors who handle children. You'll find that in Nairobi, they're well equipped. They know how to handle children. They know how to refer children for supportive services after they have been found in contact with the law. But then again, it's something that is centralized. So there is that need to make sure that the law is not just operating within the capital city, but also in other aspects of the country.
Why do you think that is the reason? Like it's only in Nairobi?
I think, first of all, because it's the capital city, then it's the fact that everything is in Nairobi. Where is Parliament? It's in Nairobi. Where is the the ministries, everything centralized is here. So we feel that if I hold an event in Nairobi, or I empower people in Nairobi, for example, as a CSO, you'd think that you get more publicity for it, and you get more money for it. But then that is and mentality we need to change, because we are in this for the service of the children.
Yes.
Yeah. So because it will be a bit more expensive to go to Garissa, for example, like what the DCS did last week, but because we don't want to spend a lot of money going interior and doing the work, we'd rather do somewhere where people have already laid the foundation. So it is just, it's easier to build up on it.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Speaking about being away from Nairobi, in fact, we're supposed to have more people on the panel, but Eunice Kilundo, who is the Child Protection and Advocacy Manager at ChildFund, is not here with us because she is in Busia. However, she was very kind to answer this question as well. What are the gaps? And I am sure we're going to have that answer right now. Kindly.
My name is Eunice Kilundo. I work for ChildFund Kenya as the Child Protection and Advocacy Manager, based at the country office in Nairobi, but overseeing child protection and advocacy across 26 counties where we work with our partners. ChildFund's main mandate is to make sure that all children are protected and are enabled to actualize their potential and to live a full life. One of the gaps, and a real glaring gap, is the lack or inadequate capacity of service providers within the justice system to support children in terms of ensuring their digital safety. Children will need guidance from the people that are taking care of them. And so if the person who is mandated to provide such guidance does not have sufficient knowledge or information on the subject, and in this case, digital safety, then you find that they are not able to take care of the children or to protect them from online risks. The fact that the government has not provided enough facilities to separate child victims and children offenders, it becomes a problem, because children offenders could have been given access to, digital harms or indecent content and all that within the digital space. And when they are put together with child victims who may have lived within a reasonably protective environment, there is that possibility of these children poisoning each other, quote unquote. And so these child victims who came in without knowing so much about how to engage digitally, leave that place able to do that, but accessing wrong and harmful content, and in that way their digital safety is compromised. Again, I would also say when children leave the justice system, the measures to have them assimilated into the community in terms of ensuring community preparedness to receive them and to protect them within the digital space is not there. And so when they go out there again, there is no sufficient protection or safeguards put in place to make sure that they are safe out there again. So I believe the justice system will need to strengthen the reintegration mechanisms to make sure that communities are well aware of their online risks, and they are able to protect children within the digital space. It's true that a lot of focus is put on protecting children within the within the urban environment, because of the widespread thinking that issues of internet affect children in the urban areas more than children in the rural areas. But we know that as long as there is internet, whichever part of the country, those children are at risk. And so it is very important that whatever safeguards and protective measures that are put to protect children within the urban environment also need to be put within the rural environment. Service provision, for example, ensuring that if there are trainings for teachers being provided by the government or by non-state actors, for example, they need to target both the rural and the urban environment. If a predator drops a pin to a child in the rural areas, they will be able to access that child very easily. And so the fact that there's internet all over requires that measures that are taken to protect children within the urban environment also protect children within the rural environment. Creating awareness at family level, ensuring that parents are well aware of what is happening within the digital space will ensure the protection of children within the rural as well as the urban environment. So if services are lacking, there are no schools. We know that cyber cafes are everywhere, even in the rural environment. If safeguards to make sure that such facilities are safe for children are not applied equally within the rural and the urban environment, then the children at the rural environment are going to be exposed to more risks, because the thinking that children are safe just because where they are looks remote doesn't hold water anymore. Internet is almost everywhere, and so the online risks that expose children to harm are everywhere, and they need to be addressed the same way both in rural and in urban areas. I want to underscore 3 things actually. The first one is children need to be empowered and to understand the risks online. They need to be able to articulate issues well in terms of saying, talking about any harms online, and they need to know who to tell when they are exposed to these risks or when they feel they are at threat in any way. So the importance of helping children to be able to articulate their issues, enabling children to freely talk about perceived or risks that they feel they are exposed to is very, very important. So I'm underscoring the aspect of meaningful child participation, enabling children to be able to speak out their issues and providing forums where children can do the same is very important. The second thing is on the part of the caregiver. The caregiver's God-given role, if I may say so, still remains, even protecting children within the digital environment. If a caregiver is going to be relevant in today's world, if they are going to play their protective role for children effectively in the current world, they need to know what is happening online. Because we know a caregiver is a person who a child trusts, and so they'll be the first person the child will want to go for help. And so if the child realizes that what they are telling their caregiver is something they are not very well versed in, they will not go back to them. They will go to Google, they will go to ask their friends who are digital literate. And so for that matter, the caregiver now becomes irrelevant in the child's life. So I want to speak to the caregivers and also to speak to the government, speaking to the caregivers for them to know that times are changing. This is the digital era. And so parenting also needs to adjust to the same. I want to speak to the government on the aspect of sensitizing caregivers on their role as regards protecting their children online. So community sensitizations, family level sensitizations need to be upscaled so that caregivers are able to provide the protection that children really need. I also want to underscore the aspect of providing, counseling and support services to victims of online safety issues. There is, the mechanisms for supporting these children in terms of where to go for help, follow-up mechanisms for children who have undergone probably cyberbullying and all these other issues online need to be strengthened so that these children are able to get help. We know of incidences where children have actually even committed suicide because of, issues that they've encountered online. And so these measures need to be strengthened. Issues like support groups at community level where victims, and survivors can talk to children and youth in the community, both as a deterrence and also as a way of coping with any effect that a child may have undergone or a youth may have undergone within the digital space. I think those are things that really need to be strengthened to enable both deterrence, prevention, and response when harm digitally has happened on children and youth. Thank you so much, and I appreciate this opportunity, and I pray that it's going to be of benefit to children and youth in the country. Thank you.
So what I'm getting from Eunice is that sufficient protection, one, and also the need to reintegrate the children back in, to the society. And I could see you, Elvis, nodding as we're talking about the gaps. Perhaps you might want to add on to that.
I think in terms of the gaps, agreeing with Eunice, is there might be need for us to adopt a restorative kind of mindset as individuals.
Right.
So, like what we were saying earlier with group one, in terms of not identifying a child by the activities, reminding everybody the simple message that you're not your past. I mean, it applies to us as adults, and it's harder for us as adults to learn because no one teaches us how to learn. And for children, I think one of the things that needs to happen, especially for children in conflict and in contact with the law, is adopting that restorative kind of approach that kind of affirms and reassures them that indeed, better is to come. Yes, you'll suffer. Yes, there are a lot of what would you call them, hardships and hurdles, but you at the end of the day, you will reach the other side. Yeah.
Okay, so now if you remember the previous panel that was here talked about what they're doing to make the court system friendly. Caren, do you think they're doing enough?
Well, I think that they're really trying. Seeing that the system was only introduced in 2020 after the aftermath of the COVID pandemic and the need to integrate technology in order to, not stop the operations of the court. They're actually really trying. As a person who appears before court to, handle these sessions, I can say that more still needs to be done, maybe to take a rights-based approach.
Right.
In when looking at these things, Elvis and I have alluded to the right to participation because we want the children to be heard and we want them to participate in these places and these spaces, yes?
Right.
So for them to be able to participate, then these digital tools being employed in the courts should be able to also accommodate them. Like the way Honorable Kiposia was saying, if a child does not want to appear before her, they should be able to indicate.
Right.
If they want to participate during that session or not, they should be able to indicate. I think, yes, what I can say that they're really trying.
Yeah.
There's more that needs to be done to also promote the accessibility of these facilities as well, be it in the institutions that the children are in, or even in the local areas, because of course you find the issues of not only the access to the digital tools, but the internet itself. Because the digital and the virtual courts are run by the internet.
Yes.
So if at all there would be stakeholder participation, to engage people who would help diversify or delocalize the infrastructure to these far-flung areas, that would be much, much better.
Yeah.
Because without the capacity and the resources, then the system we want to integrate fails. Yeah, if you do not have the resources, then the system that we want to digit and transform the court system to be a digital one will definitely fail. So promoting access and providing the technology and infrastructure for the same would be the first step, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. I love the fact that we're having solutions. As much as we're saying these are the challenges, we almost know what we need to do, right? But I want us to move to the work you do at ICMEC. So I want to understand, now social media obviously has been a tool that you have relied on in highlighting cases of missing children, right? However, sometimes when children are found, they can be vilified, right? And people have a lot to say on social media. So where do you draw that line between we want to find a missing child and also protecting them? Because when they are found, people might say, okay, we need to know where the child was. We need to know what they were doing. People have a lot of opinions, right? So where do we draw that line, and how has, that been in your organization?
That's an interesting question, and I'd like to sound a bit shrewd and say that's none of their business.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, Terry, your life is your own, right? If, God forbid, I am traveling and then I get into an accident and I say, guys, pray for me, I got into an accident. It's not, you don't need to know where I was coming from or who I was meeting, And so it's the same way that we may treat adults on social media that we see is being reflected to children.
Right.
And I'd like to say that when we're doing trainings, one of the things we say that the fact that anyone is on social media stands a risk of abuse of one form or the other.
Yes.
Be you an adult or a child, So let's talk about missing children. In Kenya, we have not yet fully adopted the system of using social media. We have tried.
Yes.
There are some steps that are being taken. But compared to other jurisdictions, there is a more involved and integrated method of using social media to create alerts for missing children.
Yes.
And they are seen as very fruitful. For example, for urgent cases, there's a system known as the Rapid Emergency Alert System. So if I'm walking with my son in the mall and then he gets lost and I call and I report it, all the security guards in that mall will get an alert. This child is missing right now. He was dressed like this. The police officers who check at the gate and also a few traffic spots within the perimeter of the said mall will immediately be alerted to that, and people will also be able to see it because it's on social media.
Yes.
And that means that whoever has taken my child at that particular moment could be stopped even before they get out of the mall. So you see, that is a very good use of social media and technology platform to prevent a child from going missing and facing the dangers that come with it. So that is a system we have not yet embraced here in Kenya, but hopefully we are going there, and we are hoping to work with the government to get there.
Yes.
But now, as you can say it locally, we have the Missing Children Kenya, who put out posters of missing children. They'll put probably their name, the work the parent does, the rough age of the child, and where this child lives.
Yes.
Of course, if a child is missing, there is some information that you cannot fail to share because it is what will help you be able to locate this child.
Right.
But the moment the child has been located, there's supposed to be what we call takedown procedures, so that the photos, the posts, and all this information that we shared to locate the child is removed from the active social media platforms to prevent the child being victimized or now the people who are demanding to know other things. And then I just say this, the fact that I have posted on social media does not mean that you're entitled to the entire truth.
Story, yes.
And I think it depends. Social media is tricky.
Yeah.
We are all on that platform. The same way someone can take my photo and make a stupid meme of it, is the same way they can do with a child. So I don't like saying this, but at the end of the day, the moment we expose our children to social media, we need to talk to them about developing a tough skin, because there are things we can't protect them from.
Right.
But also, other than that, we need to show them how to navigate the platform maturely, so that they know how to handle and respond to incidences online. And also, you find that sometimes children are being abused online and they're not aware of it.
Yeah.
So capacity building and awareness creation is very important, but not just to us as adults, but your child, the moment they start interacting with technology, the moment they start interacting with any social media application, regardless of age, you develop with them and let them know the challenges they're likely to face.
Right.
And not just challenges, but also the positive sides of it. Yes.
So you really have to be intentional.
Intentional.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So I think I'll come to you, Elvis. I remember, being in law school, and one of the things our lecturers used to want us to say is, why do you want to become a lawyer? Why do you want to become a lawyer? And a lot of us were, I want to help, right? And I'm sure that is what is happening to also some students they want to help. So for someone who is probably studying the law, they're a law student, is there anything they can do right now?
Yes, certainly. So this kind of gives me reminds me of a backstory of why the Strathmore Law Clinic came to be.
Right.
Students basically came together and recognized the fact that, as a first year with, the rights of an arrested person or, your basic constitutional law, you have more privileged information than, 10,000 people, say, in Mathare or somewhere else in Kitui.
Yes.
I hope my ancestors don't punish me. But, ideally, recognizing that particular privilege led the students to come together and say, why can't we not go out there and break down this law for people? Because at the end of the day, we all talk about our constitution and, there should be a law, or serikali's idea, sheria inasema nini. And in that entire process, there's need to simplify these concepts,
Yes.
like our finance bill. Break it down for a layman in such a way that when public participation comes, they're able to take part in it. So what the students did is basically go into informal settlements, do a bit of research in terms of what information do they want to know about the law. And now we basically go back with them and teach them how to break down those concepts into Sheng. Hardest part, but it's possible. And let them go out there and actually see what happens. For the students that have been in my class, I always tell them that the university will always put you in a bubble that works. They send an email, I will reply. They will call and I won't be offended. I'll say, it's okay, let's deal with it tomorrow, or something of the sort.
Right.
But I told them that they need to expose themselves to what comes outside of the four walls of the university. The 4 years that you have of getting a law degree it's pretty short. You start and you're done. I can literally recall the time I was in first year.
Yeah.
And ideally, it's that exposure to what happens outside there that helps. So one would be engage and volunteer in, activities and law clinics and organizations that are taking part in helping society.
Yeah.
You learn, you'll expose yourself to the socioeconomic realities. Because for me, as a first year, I had the privilege of being part of the clinic. And, my basic knowledge on the rights of an arrested person, you have the right to keep quiet. And we're having a paralegal training for leaders in Kibera. And I'm telling them, you can keep quiet when you've been arrested. And their first reaction was, in the eyes of, a police officer, hiyo ni madharau. So why are you disrespecting me as the cop? And I'm the one with the power.
Yes.
So learning that and seeing how to balance the two, personally, it did impact how I saw the law going forward, and it does something to a student. So I would encourage a student to take part in such activities.
All right. So there is something that you can do as a student. And Caren, maybe you could speak to the role of pro bono advocates when it comes to creating a safe environment.
Okay, well, the right to legal representation is one of the most fundamental when we are talking about access to justice. So without the advocates, there can be no legal representation and there can be no access to justice.
Right.
So the role of pro bono advocates who do not expect to, get paid is actually very important, because one of the limits of the limitations to why people are not able to access justice is the money factor. The fact that they cannot be able to afford good legal representation is one of the major issues that dwindles our efforts in promoting access to justice. So pro bono advocates in themselves are very essential in the justice system. And for them to properly exercise their roles and to be able to offer this pro bono services to children, they must create capacity in themselves, because you cannot give a service that you're not aware of how to give it. Pro bono advocates play a very important role in, as he has said, we're the ones who have access to these tools, access to the law, and we're the ones who bridge the gap between the legislature and the society in terms of understanding the law, what the law stipulates, and what the law requires. So pro bono advocates have a huge responsibility. In as much as they're not being paid, their contribution is quite huge, be it in promoting conversation about policy development or policy creation, be it integrating systems that will promote access to justice, even in their own operations, including the use of technology to manage their systems, manage their records. I mean, their role is and can be diversified. From the provision of legal services, but as well inclusion in provision of technical know-how, in the provision of digital literacy skills, like we have done today with the children. We have integrated and brought together stakeholders who are involved and can be able to provide these services to the children. So it is not only in the legal representation part. There's a lot that advocates in the pro bono sector can do. So it calls for having a broad mindset and being open-minded to where you can actually chip in.
All right. Being broad-minded and just opening your mind, so many things that you can do. Now, unfortunately, I feel like we could go on, but we really cannot. But I think that's the beauty. We can always continue this conversation on the podcast. However, just before you leave, probably one thing that you could talk to parents and guardians, one thing they need to do when they think about keeping their children safe in this digital environment. What do you think?
Thank you for that, Terry. And I'll just repeat what I said, what we've said, intentional parenting. The reason for this is because the laws could be there. Artificial intelligence could step in and create all these parameters and boundaries. But at the end of the day, if there is no intentional conversation about the safeguards that are in place, if there is no intentional conversation about your rights online, how to say no, when to say no, and when to report, then the law becomes useless. So there is no way the law does not operate in a vacuum. Technology will not operate in a vacuum. As parents, as stakeholders, as lawyers, all of us here have a mandate to play in terms of capacity building and creating awareness so that children and even adults can know the measures that are there in place to keep themselves safe, to keep their children safe. And in case these measures fail, what steps should they be able to take next to restore themselves to a point of safety?
Thank you. Elvis, quickly.
First thing that came to my mind when I heard about intentionality was this cliche statement that it takes a village to raise a child. Every time a person thinks of the village, we always think of the wazee. But we also forget the fact that, there's power and there's some beauty in having a peer village, a village of peers. And to the parents and caregivers, I would say that it's important for them to recognize the value of, the peers in co-parenting with them, so telling them about this TikTok thing that they're hearing about, or this dance challenge that's happening, and explaining it to them and breaking it down to them could actually really, really complement the intentionality.
Amazing. Caren?
Okay, parents and guardians are the first point of call. When you're growing up, whatever you learn, whatever you observe, come from the people who are closest to you. And for most people, that's the parents or guardians. And their role cannot be gainsaid after that. The way the parents also use the same technology themselves is important.
Yes.
If they're constantly posting this, commenting that on Twitter, being a keyboard warrior, or cyberbullying and whatever, it starts from where the child grows up. It starts from how they see other people use and utilize the internet. So it is important for parents and guardians, or people even in an influential position or capacity, to be very wary or very aware about how they use the internet, because everyone, the children are watching, everyone is watching. So monkey see, monkey do.
Yes.
You can't tell me not to do this, and I have seen you do it. They need to be aware of the issues that can crop up with, just revealing too much information, as was said earlier. They need to also recognize the problems that can be brought forth by, not only revealing too much, but, as she said, there's some information that needs to be shared in order to trace a child who's missing. But, can we look at, I've shared the photo, I've shared where they live, I've shared where they school, I've shared this and that. What happens to the child thereafter? Okay, fine, they've been found. But when they come home and they're going to interact with the rest of the children, as a parent, when they come back to me, I'm the one who's going to suffer the repercussions of the trauma that they're going to face.
True.
So in as much as we are employing these digital systems in promoting their rights, in promoting their safety and well-being, we must also balance the fact that they're children and they're vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'd say.
Great. I think that's something that we should not forget, that they're children and they're vulnerable. Thank you so much. It's been such a fantastic session. Have you guys learned something? All right. Thank you so much.
Wow, what an insightful panel. I'd like to acknowledge our panelists, and just a wrap up of the whole series. I'd like to ask my co-hosts, what stood out for you throughout the series, and what would you want to highlight and emphasize on?
I could go first. Yeah, thank you. There's so much. Whenever I keep thinking of how do I answer this question, I'm like, oh my god, I don't want to stress one thing and then forget the other, because so much was shared and all very important. I'll start with Joachim in panel 1 from ChildFund Kenya, and he talked about child perpetrators in the digital environment. So when we're talking about the harms in the digital space, sometimes these harms are also perpetrated by the children themselves, like the example you talked about with the bullying. Those are kids bullying other children, right? And he talked about the importance to support those children, and that there are systems and structures like counseling and all that. And in our case, sometimes they'll come to us where they're already in the system. But just to emphasize that there's a lot of support that should be given to children who are also seen or have perpetrated harms within the digital environment. Athena on language, which I think you'll talk about, so I want to go into, but also support groups at community level. I think it was mentioned in one of the panels how important it is to take support groups and learning, like when we train children on digital literacy and safety, that should be happening at smaller, community groups where the children are, where the parents are. Like right now, they're home for 2 months, I think, or even longer. You can only imagine all of the things that they're going to have access to. So it's very important to have support groups and awareness for both parents and children at those community levels. But just thank you so much to all the panelists and for all the amazing things that were shared. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Bright.
Yeah, first, for me, I'm very encouraged by the fact that there's this many people who care about children.
Right.
Yeah.
And, for children to be safe, for children to be able to access justice and education, yeah, that for me is just, it's a very great thing. And obviously, so many things, everything that was said by all panelists were outstanding. But I love how Honorable Kibosia was speaking about, caring for like just the privacy of kids who don't have the capacity to, defend their own privacy.
Yeah.
And, saying, parents, keep your children away from social media. Just tying this to what we said when we were wrapping up the second part of the series. And Honorable Kibosia mentioning that, they're coming up with a co-parenting app, and parents can use that app, and they don't have to fight or see each other, but just put the child first. I thought that was very interesting that even the legal system, the judicial system, are doing things to put the child first. I think that was very outstanding for me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can I
great.
just say, sorry,
It's okay.
that Honorable Kibosia is one of my role models. Like, she is so committed to children matters, and like you can just see, and she's also just such a lovely person.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
And Honorable Lady Justice Madeka,
Yeah.
who we've also had on this podcast, like
Yeah.
just amazing people. Yeah.
Great. For me, Liz had mentioned it a while back about like when it's child pornography, it means that the child consented to it. And yesterday when I was like going through that panel, like it hit me like when it's child pornography, like of course the child hasn't consented to like doing that, but how you presenting it or the language you're using, it matters a lot because what she was saying, it was said by Athena Morgan, and she was saying there's a huge difference between child pornography and when you phrase it as child sexual abuse.
Exploitative material.
Yes, and it blew my mind. So that's what that was my highlight of the whole series.
Yeah. Just the power of language.
Yes, exactly. And you've come to the most interesting part of the episode where we play games and decompress.
Yes. I can start.
Okay, Jambi.
Yes.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
River or lake? Where the Kiku in me?
I think lake.
Music festival or art festival?
Gosh. Music festival with art.
Music is
okay.
art.
Gym or spa?
Spa.
Piano or guitar?
Piano.
A yacht or a jet ski?
Yacht.
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 Doctor or nurse?
Doctor.
Tattoo or piercing?
Tattoo.
Chrome or safari?
Oh, chrome.
Gold or diamond?
Gold.
Long or short hair?
We were just discussing that
Yeah.
this morning. I don't know. I'm in the middle.
Angels or vampires?
Angels.
Sun or moon?
Ooh, moon.
Pink or blue?
Pink.
Sugar or spice?
There you go.
Sugar.
Okay, bright.
Okay.
Right. Brian, right.
Reading or writing?
Reading. No, writing.
Public or private?
Private.
Motorcycle or bicycle?
What?
A motorcycle or a bicycle?
A motorbike.
Ungejibu
Wow.
motorcycle, right?
Okay.
Physical books or ebooks?
Physical book.
Pirates or ninjas?
Ninjas.
Stop or go?
Stop.
Europe or Asia?
Asia.
Day or night?
Night.
Math or science?
Huh?
Math or science?
Science.
Okay.
That's it.
Wait,
Yeah.
it's not
Oh,
over.
we're
We
done.
still have time. Okay.
Important?
Wow. What happened to the game? Okay, right. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Okay. Now time is up.
Now time is
Now
up.
time is up.
Sorry. And that concludes our 3-part series on the Day of the African Child. Happy World Children's Day, right?
Yes.
Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out with us, and catch you on our next episode. Make sure to subscribe and rate us on your listening platform, and follow us on our social media, on all social media platforms at Wakili.sha on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Facebook and
Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yeah.
X,
Wakili_sha.
yes, and on TikTok too. And subscribe on our YouTube channel.
And just once again to say a very big thank you to our sponsors and all our partners, advocates, professionals, volunteers, everyone who made the Day of the African Child successful, everyone who's joined us for activities on World Children's Day, Children's Service Month this whole of November, and just everyone who makes our work at Wakili.sha possible. Continue joining us on our journey promoting access to justice and education for children in conflict with the law. See you at the next ones. Bye.
Bye, guys.